No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
Okay, people, so the Boruto series is definitely on its way to major changes, especially after the latest episode of Boruto Naruto Next Generations, with the graduation, so to speak, of Team 7, now that Sarada has become a Chunin, because now the dynamics of everything changes. Sarada gets promoted to captain, and Konohamaru gets removed from the situation entirely as they continue to evolve and develop as a three-man cell. Ultimately, that's where it's going, and this latest episode in particular, it definitely was something very interesting, to say the least, for the crew, for the series as a whole, because, you know, you fast forward, we went from 2015, if I'm not mistaken, the Boruto Naruto Next Generations film came out over here in the West, and we've been with these people for on and off 6 years. We had that film, then we had the small Sarada Gaiden manga, and then in 2017 the full-on Boruto manga and anime both came out, and since then we've been with this crew. And I know it feels like, oh, it was just yesterday Boruto just came around. No, we're 220 something episodes deep into this shebanga, and it's just kind of crazy to think about, because you don't really necessarily think like, hey, yeah, you know, the crew is going to change or things are going to change, but ultimately it feels as though Studio Pierrot also was very cognizant with this decision. And what I mean by that is, original Naruto was 220 episodes. That was from start to finish. Obviously, they added a bunch of fillers towards the end, but nevertheless, that was the original Naruto's run. And then came Shippuden, and it feels like because we just barely eclipsed the 220 mark with Boruto, it feels like Studio Pierrot felt like we already passed, you know, the Naruto original anime's episode run. What can we do to start showcasing that we're headed towards that Shippuden-esque direction with this series as well? And one of the big things is changing the dynamics of the group, making it so that now Sarada is a Chunin and they no longer have a captain, which also is going to be big moving forward for the future of Boruto, because if you think about it, that's going to change a lot of the direction of things. For starters, it's going to put Sarada on a path to understanding who she is as a leader, who she is, and how to maneuver around this whole situation of just being the Team 7's captain, because they're mature. In particular, Sarada is mature. Boruto is obviously still on his way. He's way more mature than the beginning of the series, but it's going to be an interesting task for her to kind of take the reins of being captain and leading this group into very dangerous situations, you'd imagine, as, you know, being the captain of a group in you know, Ninja World and whatnot. So it's definitely going to put Sarada on a different path than prior to this, because prior to it, it's Konohamaru sensei, even though Konohamaru, hey, getting them L's, fam. But ultimately, Sarada never had to think of and maneuver in that manner in terms of having the whole weight of the entire group on her shoulders, because now it's, hey, what do we do next, Sarada? How do we maneuver out of this one? And now that's some things that she has to think about. We've seen already little instances, to be honest with you, like in terms of being ready, this is probably the best Sarada is going to be ready as far as what we've seen so far, because even going back to the Boruto fight, she was taking charge. She was giving them strategy. She was already acting as captain, considering Konohamaru was nowhere to be found, and he's just been taking the L. And I swear, I really hope now that this is the end of the Team 7 that we've known thus far for Boruto, the new Team 7, so to speak, and Konohamaru is not going to be a part of that, depending on what they decide to do with his character. Ultimately, I really hope that they write it that he went back and he was like, yo, I could have done better for my crew. I could have done better in many scenarios where I let them down, and the next time we see Konohamaru, maybe he just, you know, he goes off into the back, we don't hear nothing for a while from Konohamaru, and he returns with some epic new moves and just advancement like no tomorrow. Because if we're still going along the lines of that whole thing of I'm going to be the Hokage following Naruto, Konohamaru has showcased that he has a long way to go after everything that happened in Boruto with him. I mean, considering, you know, in the Ishiki fight alone, he was essentially worthless. And don't get me wrong, those are like gods that came through and conquered stuff, so I'm not expecting Konohamaru to be the one to take him down, but it's been few and far between moments throughout this series that Konohamaru has been somewhat useful. And what I mean by that is like, okay, we had the Jugo battle, but how many others did he take an L? And, you know, against Ao, he took an L. It was L, and oh, maybe, you know, he got a little win here, or this was kind of epic, but ultimately Konohamaru, I would love to see him get some redemption. A lot of the fandom can agree that Konohamaru has not had the best hand when it comes to the Boruto series, despite the fact that he had all the potential in the world. He was kind of almost like I think Trunks or Goten of Dragon Ball. Like, they were really epic. They were Super Saiyan at 7 and 8 years old, and then they became bums when they were older. I don't want that to happen to Konohamaru because we've already seen a little bit of low-key bum status. And again, if we're gonna go along the lines of him becoming Hokage one day, we need to see way better in terms of the strength and capabilities, because strategy-wise, for the most part, he's had it down packed. We've seen again in timeless missions that he knows what to do. He has the smarts. It's just everything else that was kind of lacking throughout things. And again, hopefully they can improve as he goes into the background and no longer runs things, which kind of felt a little bit, and maybe I'm misremembering things, but they didn't, like, they had Yamato for a while with them, and they still had Kakashi when he returned to take over as Team 7. So I'm kind of confused as to why they had to do things. I know Boruto said back in my father's day they would have a replacement, but you know, now we're not doing things. But that wasn't really a replacement. It was just the captain kept on leading. But I guess it was also officially announced, like, oh, this is Team Kakashi now, once all was said and done, and it wasn't just Team 7. So technically now Team 7 is going to be Team Sarada Uchiha, Team Uchiha. That's kind of dope, but it's also again going to give them room to grow, and it's going to affect the future of things a lot, because don't forget that it looks like Boruto becomes a lot more, hopefully, badass as we go to the time skip. And how are we going to have that if we have Konohamaru kind of over his shoulder all the time being coddled? He needs to be thrown in a situation where it's just him and his two pals of Team 7, Team Sarada, and ultimately him growing and developing. As tragedy strikes, that's where Boruto is going to have to learn to pivot and not be able to rely on a sensei like Konohamaru, because it's a whole different ball game on relying on Sarada, you know, your peer that you grew up with in school and your family was, you know, friends and all that jazz. It's a whole different ball game than, oh, my big teacher that, you know, he knows Rasengan and he grew up around my father and stuff like that. Very, very big difference. And I think this also allows for more inclusion for Kawaki, because going back to the whole Boruto fight, remember one of the big things, they were like, this is the new Team 7 alongside Kawaki, even though Konohamaru wasn't there again. But ultimately, I think that's going to allow as well somewhat of inclusion. I don't know if it's just going to be an anime only episodes, because it doesn't seem like there's going to be much camaraderie in the manga in terms of like a Team 7 type of vibe. But ultimately, at the very least in the anime, I could see that's going to allow for Kawaki to not necessarily be a part of them. I don't know if they're going to create a whole different squad for Kawaki, or if he's going to even have time to be a part of a 3-man cell. But ultimately, I think that's going to allow for him to be a little bit more included, because it's going to get crowded. If we had Konohamaru, Sarada, Boruto, Mitsuki, and Kawaki, that's a lot of people. We're supposed to be ninja. We're supposed to be doing covert missions. We're not supposed to be, hey, hear us roar, there's 5 of us, we're going to jump them. So removing Konohamaru from the situation, I guess, gives opportunity for Kawaki to shine in all of the madness, and again, kind of put away some of those L's and allow some redemption for Konohamaru, like I just previously stated. I definitely want, now that, again, there's one less person, Mitsuki to also step up. This is where Mitsuki can get a little bit more of emotional maturity, of not having Sensei put his hand on your shoulder and say, hey, that's not how you do things, or just put them in awkward situations where this is where Mitsuki has to pivot in terms of his personality, in terms of how to just function like a normal human being, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's going to allow, just in general, the absence of the sensei for these kids to really mature in terms of, you know, just growth and personality and stuff like that. Like, yeah, combat wise, Sasuke said that Sarada surpassed him. I don't know about that, but nevertheless, Sarada really strong. Boruto, Prodigy, Mitsuki has Sage Mode, Ben had Sage Mode, so they're all really strong in their own right. It's more so about a maturity thing, just like how Naruto couldn't be the Hokage at the end of Shippuden because he still needed a lot of other tools mentally and emotionally and stuff like that to be able to really fulfill that role. So in order for them to become Jonin and, you know, the other two become Chunin, they need this type of advancement. And, you know, going again from way back in 2015 when the Boruto Naruto the movie stuff came out, I never thought it would lead to this point where we're 220 something episodes deep. Now they're going to be on their own. Sarada the leader, although it's always kind of hinted, I guess, in terms of Sarada's character that she's going to be the Hokage someday. And what better way to showcase her early stages than, boom, she's the leader of her team. That's the first step of leadership for the Hokage. I mean, I feel like it's almost set in stone that someday the first Uchiha Hokage of the village will be Sarada Uchiha, Sasuke's daughter, which is kind of dope if you think about it. It goes back into, even though Sasuke and Jiraiya never had a relationship or anything like that, goes back into the whole ideology, if I can't change the world, maybe you can. And it's kind of like his daughter is being entrusted with that process of changing the world, that Sasuke could never be Hokage. They wouldn't accept it. He was a war criminal, so to speak. He did a lot of horrendous things. His daughter, on the other hand, is a different story. And it's also always nice to see when they go back and, like, when Sarada is at home and, you know, Sasuke goes to talk. I feel like Sasuke in the anime, just as a father, destroys manga Sasuke. Manga Sasuke, rarely, few and far between, you see him with his family. It's like he don't give a damn about his family. In the anime is a different story. You constantly see, like, yet again with the latest episode, the end of Team 7, he is conversing with his daughter, trying to give her an understanding of Konohamaru is sad too, but this is the way your relationship with him will develop as well, and it'll be even stronger. Just like how Sasuke, when he left from Kakashi and them, it may have been in bad terms, but nevertheless it grew to have a very strong bond in the end of it all. But yeah, people, the end of Team 7 in Boruto. It's been a wild ride, 6 years on and off again, from the movie to the Sarada Gaiden manga to the start of the manga and anime for Boruto. Very curious what you guys think about this. For starters, do you feel like they are ready? Also, do you think that this is going to change a lot of things for the future of Boruto? I feel like this is where also it's going to allow for, when we do get to the Boruto Shippuden, Boruto Z, for Boruto to go a different path. Let's just say if whatever happens to ultimately remove Kawaki from the village, not having Konohamaru again to kind of lean on his shoulder and different things, it's going to make Boruto possibly go even a little more edgier, a little more darker. This is where we're going to get that Boruto that kind of looks like a somewhat of a badass from that time skip, and I can't wait to see it. This is going to change everything for Boruto moving forward, because now it's just the three of them. Now they got to step it up. It's no more Konohamaru sensei, please come take this L for us. Now they got to pivot on their own. And your overall thoughts and expectations for the Boruto anime moving forward? Man, goodbye old Team 7. It's almost like seeing your kids graduate. For me, it feels like that anyway. It's been 6 years, and yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with it next. Hopefully they really showcase Sarada in that leadership role, because one day she is going to be the Hokage. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Hit that bell to get all notifications. And if you want to follow any of my other social media, links are in the description below. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life. Bye. Have an awesome day. Peace in. And once again, toast to Team 7. It was a crazy 6-year run. Konohamaru, go train up. Mitsuki, learn some human interaction basic principles. Boruto, you're gonna probably get darker with it. And Sarada, become the leader that you were destined to be. Have an awesome one.